1963, on a night the New York Times referred to as the Night of the Devil, 2 Lodi, New Jersey policemen responding to a disturbance at the Angel Lounge were viciously attacked, stripped naked, brutalized, and then shot to death by 2 men. On March 15th of this year, the New Jersey State Parole Board plans to release one of these murderers. Well, I hope this creepy SOB wasn't getting ready to pack his bags, because we're going to unpack those bags tonight, Thomas Trantino. We're going to show you for what you really are and how the people can act to keep you in the cage in which you belong. Next on the Morton Downey Jr. Joining me at home base tonight in this first segment of our program. And folks at home, let me tell you something right now. Usually I do a show where I try to show both sides of an issue. I think the people will demonstrate the other side of this issue. I think our studio audience will demonstrate the other side of this issue. I think they'll show you that there can only be one final conclusion to what we're going to discuss tonight. Chief of Police Joe Delaney from Paramus, New Jersey. Chief, how are you? In 1963, 25 years ago, as a young detective, you were one of the first officers to arrive at the scene of the murders of Sergeant Peter Voto and Officer Gary Tedesco. Could you tell our audience what happened that night in the Angel Lounge?
You know, when you talk about it now, Mort, it's like I can feel it again. It was a hot night. I was with a partner in Paramus, about 2 miles from the Angel Lounge. A call from the radio came over that there was 2 officers down, and they wanted help, and we responded. And I got to the scene, and I walked to the door. Death has a very distinct odor about it, and I've smelt death before. The stench of this death filled my nostrils so much I couldn't breathe. I was choking. And even when I talk about it now, I can smell that same smell. I walked into the Angel Lounge and slipped as I walked in. And I thought it was on beer or wine. It was on blood. That entire floor was filled with blood. Gary was under a table. I didn't even recognize him. He was in a fetal position. Pete, no way I could recognize Pete. I learned later that Falco and Trantino, along with some other people, were celebrating a successful robbery that they committed at the Angel Lounge. And at that time, there was a disturbance, and these 2 officers responded. Gary, by the way, had no weapon, probationary patrolman. At that time, when they...
He didn't even have his uniform on yet, did he?
No, he did not. He was with Pete. Pete was showing them the ropes. When they got there, what happened afterward, in the court transcripts, is something that boggles the mind, shocks your sensibilities. I mean, this was no shootout with cops. This was a brutal, cold-blooded joy killing. I mean, they made these guys strip, dance, and whatever other perverted acts they did.
We must know what other perverted acts they tried to perform.
There's no question in my mind that both of these officers resisted any actions that these 2 creeps wanted them to do. And they were beaten severely, pistol whipped.
So badly that the grips on the pistols were broken.
That's right. And then they were shot in cold blood. And then he put a jukebox on and started to play and dance.
Shot once?
No.
Were they shot in the testicles?
Yes.
Were they shot in the stomach and the head?
Yes.
In the back?
Yes. Multiple shots. Even after they were dead, bullets emptied into the bodies while they lay there dead, while the jukebox was playing. And there's no question in my mind, that was the Night of the Devil at the Angel Lounge.
It's my understanding that the parole board of the state of New Jersey, and I hope those people who sit on that parole board are watching tonight.
So do I.
Pay attention to this story, please. I've just announced a release date for this animal. As much as I don't want to hear it, can you Can you tell us why this guy is even being considered for parole?
I wish I could. Again, you know, it shocks me to think that 12 members of a jury with 2 alternates sat for weeks on end listening to this gruesome tale and then ultimately found this guy guilty. And then, in addition, sentenced him to death. And when the death penalty was outlawed, he then got life imprisonment. Now, you know, the public thinks life is life. Life can be 10 years, life can be 20 years, life can be 24 years, or 25 years in the case of Trantino. I have no idea. You know, they're supposed to release him March 15th. You know, in Caesar's time, beware the Ides of March. But when I think about, and I had a reporter just ask me, well, Chief, 25 years is a long time. Well, how long is dead? I mean, dead's a long time.
March 25th, my friends, is 10 days after this slime ball could be on the streets. We're going to talk to some of the other members of the family in this case after we take this break. Stand by. We're going to continue our story. I want to lay all of the groundwork. I want all of the groundwork laid. Would you please go to the film so that our monitors can be viewed by our audience in the studio and at home? One of the things that always happens in cases like this is that the criminal becomes the focus of attention, not the victim. And the victim and the devastating impact that the crime has on the victim's family gets overlooked. Well, we're not going to overlook that tonight. We're not going to forget the tears that were shed. We're not going to forget the collapse of the wife upon the coffin, of the children, of the pain that they felt. Life imprisonment, it's a long time. Parole, who paroles the family? Who paroles the family that had to take care of their own needs, their food, their medical care, raise their children, pay for their educations, while the criminal got taught to be an artist, got the best books, the best medical attention, the best food, a dietitian, help for anything that he needed. We're joined at our home base tonight by Chief Andrew Voto. Chief Voto is from Lodi, New Jersey, and he's the brother of slain Sergeant Peter Voto, who was in one of our picture frames up here. Tell us a little about your brother that you lost. What did the son of a bitch who killed him do to your family?
Well, he was a great father and a great family man, and he was as tough as they came. Very seldom in life do you meet a guy that was as tough as he was, but had a heart as big as he did. That night will live in infamy with me and the whole family. We have no more family per se. I love my nephews and I love the entire family. But we could not function as a family anymore. There are no holidays in the Voto homes. To a degree, we celebrate our holidays, we go through emotions. But most of us are lonely, even in a crowded room, because it was a horrible death. You know, in life, you expect somebody to possibly get hit by a car, you expect something to happen. You could understand it, illness. My brother was a World War II veteran. He spent many, many years on the USS Alabama fighting the Japs in the Pacific. He was a medic in the service, and he was on the flagship of Bill Halsey. He went from the Solomons, Wake Island, all the way through the war, only to come home to a person that
Did he aspire to be a policeman most of his life?
At that time, it was what we could get. We were, after the 40s, we were going into a slight recession. I don't say his goal was to be a policeman, but he did like the job when he got it. And he was a great cop with a great personality. But what happened at the night of the Angel Lounge changed all our lives. We've all been very, very hurt.
We've heard the story of what happened in the Angel Lounge. Do you have anything to add to that? Have you read any transcripts that described what they may have done to these two men?
My brother, his wife, and myself and my sister attended every day of that trial. I don't think anybody would even want to read as to what happened in that trial.
You've got to tell us.
Well, the bodies were so mutilated. I'll give you an example. I had a kid cousin who was on the ambulance corps that was with us every day of our lives. When they called the ambulance to transport him to the Hackensack Hospital to get him pronounced and get an autopsy done, my cousin took him to the hospital, a young man that he was at the time. And on the way out of the hospital, one of the attendants says, "Too bad, you know, about your Uncle Pete." He says, "What about my Uncle Pete?" He says, "That's him that you just brought into the hospital. He was unrecognizable." His face was mutilated.
Was it mutilated from the gunshot wounds or from the beating?
The beating. He cut him to pieces with the gun. His last words that he heard, according to the testimony in the trial, was, first of all, he intimidated them, both of them. And my brother refused.
Intimidated how?
In having them stripped. My brother refused to take his pants off. Mm-hmm. And he says, "Take your pants off," several times, and he would keep hitting them with a gun. One of the girls testified to the fact and was in the Trantino party.
When you say one of the girls, that's the four girls that Trantino and the other guy brought to the bar to celebrate with.
Right. One of the girls, even in testimony, says that wonderful man went down to one knee. And the last words he heard alive, "Say your prayers, you MF, because you're gonna die." And I'm proud to say, my brother unyieldingly says, "Do what you have to do." Because he was not gonna go the route that Trantino wanted him to go.
At our loudmouths tonight, Elaine Harvey from Lodi, New Jersey, sister of the slain officer Gary Tedesco. Elaine, how old were you when your brother was killed?
20.
Has it done anything to your life that you can't get over?
We can't get over. Well, it's completely destroyed most of us. I'd like to say something about Gary, if I may.
Please.
We were very close in age, and we went to school together. He was a very mild, nice-looking, blue-eyed young man, very happy person, wanted to do things for the community, like his father, who was a community leader most of the time. He was very shy, and yet he would not even be seen in his own shorts in front of his parents. But vicious strangers had to see him in his shorts and socks before they shot him 5 times.
Let me ask you a question, just so our audience at home and here knows. Your brother was a probationary officer at that time.
That's correct.
Not allowed to carry a gun.
That's right.
Didn't have the full policeman's uniform yet.
That's correct.
And as I understand it from having read what went on, when the beating started, he ran from the Angel Lounge, grabbed the microphone in the car, in the police car,
Yes.
called for help,
That's correct.
and knowing what was going on, walked back in the Angel Lounge
Yes.
unarmed.
Yes, and he didn't think he would never see his family again. I think it might have even been possible. He did call twice. I don't know.
Now, all of these are the acts of a man that the social engineers of this country think has come to his senses. Jerry Votto, brother of one of the slain.
Son.
A son, I beg your pardon. You were 13 years old when your pop was killed. What goes through your mind knowing that the man who viciously murdered your dad is going to be back at his bar stool in some Angel Lounge someplace?
Very simple, Mort. As the old saying, I want my pound of flesh. I was a police officer for 13 years before I was retired. I can speak out now. I want my pound of flesh. They can't execute this man. Keep the bastard in jail. Keep him where he can't hurt nobody anymore, Mort. What people fail to realize is this man was out on parole when he committed this crime. He was out on parole. Now they want to parole him again. He's rehabilitated. He's never even admitted that he committed the crime. He refuses to admit that he committed the crime. Therefore, he cannot be rehabilitated. If you refuse to admit it, he feels he hasn't done anything wrong.
You know, one of the amazing things about this case, think about it for just a second. I don't know how many of you remember the criminal who wrote in The Beast of the Belly of the Beast. I forget his name.
Jack Abbott.
Son of, what was his name?
Jack Abbott.
Jack Abbott. Norman Mailer praised this man, his fantastic talents. Bring him back out onto the streets again. And in a few days, he had buried a knife into the back of someone.
There was another one more. Edgar Smith raped and mutilated a 14-year-old girl. Trantino's cellmate in the death house. In fact, Edgar Smith is the one that taught Trantino how to write books. They paroled Edgar Smith out to California. It was only months. He raped and almost killed another girl. The exact same way. And his words were, it was New Jersey State Parole Board's fault because they knew he wasn't rehabilitated yet. Now they want to put Trantino out. This was Trantino's cellmate in the death house. They used to communicate. This is the man that taught Trantino.
There may not be life after death, but there sure as hell is life after the death penalty, isn't there? We're going to find out about that next. Welcome back. Welcome back, all of America. Most of all, welcome back our friends in New Jersey, New York, and Connecticut, because you're going to be able to do something about this. And I think people from all over America are going to rise up by the time this one is through tonight. Someone said you're not getting angry, you're not kicking up your heels, you're not doing the things you usually do. I don't need to do that this time. You listen to this story. It's enough to make you puke all over yourself when you hear this type of thing going on. Now, of course, the great pablum pukers have transformed Thomas Trantino from the cold-blooded killer that he was to a rehabilitated model prisoner and a talented author and artist, all right? I want our audience to take a look at the man that New Jersey wants to put back on the streets. Don't let it happen. This is the animal.
A handful of raw meat in one hand, a fistful of bad raps in the other, and it all. I'm flying. I'm rising. I'm riding. I'm flying on. Ho!
Chief Delaney, Chief Voto. Guys, you've obviously been watching Trantino like a hawk since 1963. What's life been like for this bastard, for this man who was supposed to be executed 25 years ago? Either one of you jump in.
This man here was one of the most rotten prisoners they could have because the prisoners themselves didn't like him. They rewarded him by putting him into the Morton track in the Pines lands of New Jersey in a private trailer. I have a list of the dates they had him out on leave, recreation leave they called it. This man here did not gain his recreation facilities by being a good person. He has spit at the guards. He has thrown pots at the guards. He's a bum of the first nature. He's got everybody conned. If you read his book, don't buy it. Whatever you do, don't buy it. If your library hasn't, read it. He describes himself.
First time, I'd advise you to steal it and burn it.
Right. He describes himself as a person that got great pride out of beating up his school teacher as a juvenile. He spent time as a juvenile in correctional centers. He's not able to be reformed in any manner. This man here describes himself riding a subway and the joy he got out of a man passing by him and rubbing his buttocks against him.
Your kind of people, Mort.
This is really the type of man he is. What I can't understand, and the only good that could come out of this program is that we have to have a change in government and a change in thinking. How this...
I think something else good could come out of this program. I believe that the members of the parole board in this state are smart enough, humane enough, and on top of what's going on enough to know that the people aren't going to put up with this kind of garbage much longer, all right? They're just not going to do it. Now, here's a guy who, for the first 18 years in prison, had 28 citations against him in prison, all right? 28 citations in prison. And yet the papers today, I read it today, call him a model prisoner.
He started the riots in Rawway. He was put in the Broom Building in Trenton. He's been sent to psychiatric evaluations because of his attitude. He spits at other prisoners. He's, as Joe Delaney explained it today, he's conning, he's not a convict, he's conning everybody. But what annoys me is that these people are supposed to have some education that make our laws. Parole boards should not have the right to handle such cases as this. We're not looking for reform in this case. He's not a kid. He's not a person that embezzled a nonviolent crime. This pig killed with joy, and he belongs in there. There is such a thing as punishment. He has not been punished.
But he hadn't been punished at all. I understand that his wife divorced him when all of this happened, but love reached his heart. Love reached his heart through the auspices of his lawyer's wife.
Yeah, he met his lawyer's wife.
Who he married.
Yeah.
Who he married.
You know, what's very interesting about...
And went on a honeymoon with. And lived in the trailer with. And had all the conjugal rights of someone who had never done anything wrong with. I wonder if she rubbed her buttocks against him.
You know, you asked what life was like for Trantino after he got the death penalty, after it was commuted and life imprisonment. Elaine Harvey was taking art lessons. This murder, this brutal murder of her brother, destroyed her life to a point where she couldn't continue her art lessons. And yet, Trantino gets art lessons and now is an alleged artist. The only artist this bum is a con artist. That's the only artist he is. As far as him being in that trailer with Charlie, no question about it, he was. He did have conjugal rights. Charlie, his wife.
His wife?
Yeah.
Oh, it's a girl's name, Charlie. Oh, all right.
He was in that trailer, free as a bird, very frankly, having conjugal rights while the rest of society was being screwed.
How did he get into that trailer?
You'll have to ask the corrections department.
By spitting at guards, by being a problem.
Who let you go on? Yeah, who's in charge of all this? You tell us what's going on.
All right, we've got some questions coming.
That's right.
This is what we want to come out of this. Why and how? And who cares if he's transformed into a nice guy? He's to stay there. He's to die there.
Absolutely. Let me ask Elaine. Elaine, is Patty Tedesco? Where's Patty? Patty's not here tonight. Let me ask Elaine then, all right? Elaine, the state of New Jersey obviously feels that Mr. Trantino has earned a parole. Now, don't you think the state of New Jersey knows better than you do?
Every single state and federal court has heard this case. He even brought it to court himself not long ago. And they have all concluded he is not rehabilitated. He has not received enough punishment. And yet, the parole board, with all the facts and all the courts, and he has gotten justice as far as legal justice in our system in the United States, And yet they still insist on saying, good boy. No such thing.
Let me tell you something. I've had calls in the last 2 days since it became known that I was going to do this show from 3 alleged members of the jury who sat and heard the evidence in this case. And they said, why don't the members of the parole board call us? We heard the facts, and they are vividly burned in our minds 25 years later. He is an animal who should never be set free from his cage. Parole board members, why don't you contact the members of the jury? They were chosen as the people to determine his peers. You're not elected. We're going to tell you what you can do to keep this creep behind bars where he belongs. Next, stand by. I just don't think there's any question that we would be abdicating our responsibility as citizens if we didn't do everything in our power to keep this behind bars for the rest of his life. Chief Delaney, explain for us, if you will, the mechanics of the parole process here in New Jersey.
All right, what happened in this particular case was that 2 members of the parole board...
How many are there?
7.
7, all right.
They decided that he would be paroled. At that point, it would take 2 more members to call for a full review before the entire board, which has now happened. As a result of the public outcry and outrage, those 2 other members have now called for a full review.
Bless them.
Yeah. What happens now is 45 days. Anytime between now and 45 days, they will hear it with him, with Trantino. And at that point, they'll either decide, all of them, that the 2 who were going to parole him are right, or they'll reverse it. I have a strong feeling that this show will go a long way to stop those 2 and maybe reverse their thinking.
Mr. Trantino, I hope you're watching tonight. You've got a lot of people who don't like you, sir. For our audience at home, our audience here, our audience at home, all over the United States, I'm going to put information on your television screens right now that will let you know where you can write to the parole board here in New Jersey. And please keep it up there long enough for someone on crutches to walk from here to Oprah Winfrey's show and back and get the damn pencil to write it down, all right? This is the address for you. There is the telephone number. Give them a call. Let them know if you want to get the response fast. Let them know that you don't want this to happen. Chief Bodo.
I feel that this is for them, the public. The Tedesco family and the Bodo family are very unselfish about this. No matter what happens here tonight, could never restore my brother's life or Gary's life. Truthfully, a lot of people asked us, how did this come about that we called you and get this on the air? Because we've received calls from Pennsylvania, Washington, D.C. I received a call before I knew it broke in the press. Let me tell you something, all of you out there. We're mad as hell, and we're not going to take it anymore.
And that incidentally applies to anyone who was killed under these circumstances.
True.
Policemen, firemen, secretary, everyone.
This country is a beautiful country, and I'm as American as apple pie, but it's a damn shame that a woman or a mother or a father waiting for their kid to come home from college is scared and waiting, anticipating them coming through the door safely. What's brought this all about? Why didn't it die down? Because you're being bombarded with murder and scum. You are...
Poor English professor fights for the freedom of her husband, a convicted cop killer. And here it shows the man who likes to have his butt rubbed, kissing the forehead of his cutely plaid-skirted wife. Isn't that lovely? That's wonderful. What's the other picture?
The other one is the contrast of what we're dealing with from a broken-hearted father who died a miserable death, from a grandfather who tailored my brother's uniform only to see him for the first time in uniform in his coffin, from a sister who was 11 years old, was my sister Patty, that shortened her childhood, and from his mother, whose every line and crease on her face has Gary's name on it. And I was assured that the victim input was very important. So I figured these pictures would help to explain. Evidently, the parole board members don't find it very important that they...
Well, maybe they will. Maybe they will now, Elaine, all right?
Families, not
Incidentally, I want to put that
Gary.
address up again, Elaine. I want to put that address, any of you who missed it the first time, of how to contact the New Jersey Parole Board. All across America, do this, please. Because this will affect your community also, if it hasn't already done so. You have to be prepared to act as a nation. To be a free nation, you have to be prepared to take responsibility for your freedom. And that responsibility is to see that the elected officials and that the other officials in the bureaucracy respond to your needs. And one of your needs is to know that you're protected. One of your needs is to know that you get your pound of flesh, all right? You're entitled to your pound of flesh. I hope that address is up there. I hope it's been up there long enough for you to write it down. And write down the telephone number, too, all right? I think it's important for them to hear from you right away. Let me go back to our audience.
Mort, let me say one thing. You say how Mr. Trantino gets all the legal rights and everything. Like Elaine says, it destroys families. My mother was 38 years old. She was never right since. She used to sit in a corner in the room in the dark. That was my childhood. At 17, I enlisted into the Marine Corps and went to Vietnam because I couldn't stand to be home anymore. When I came out, I tried to become a police officer. Do you know what happened, Mort? I was knocked down, told I was over-aggressive with sadistic tendencies due to the fact that my father was killed on a job. It took me 2 years and many thousands of dollars to fight him, to win, to become a police officer. Nobody paid my legal fees. My kids go to school. Once a year, these pictures come out. My kids go to school, they get questioned by the teachers, by the nuns, by people who know their name on the street. My kids that weren't even born at the time are being questioned about this. This is a never-ending thing. One thing you gotta realize, there was 2 people that killed him. Falco is dead. We'll never forget our parents, but there's no headaches with Falco, you understand? You put it to the back of your mind. With Trantino, you can't put it to the back of your mind because it's always there.
Officer, do you have something to say? And would you identify yourself, please?
Yes, Mort. My name is Stephen Rogers. I'm a 15-year veteran police officer here in New Jersey. I'm also an ordained minister. I direct a 25,000-member police officers ministry. And tonight I'm here to tell you and my friends, my brother officers, that we're committing the 25,000 members of this ministry behind this effort to keep him in jail. Now, Mort, I'll say this. Let me say this. You know, there are a lot of pansy-anzy preachers out there, and I wish some of them would roll up their sleeves and get on out on the streets where the people are. You know, Isaiah said to cry aloud and despair not. Well, we're saying enough is enough. Let's bring America back to the people, and I've said this once and I'll say it again. Shame, shame, shame on the judicial system in this state.
But... Reverend, isn't it the Judeo-Christian way to forgive?
Mort, that's a false doctrine. It's a fallacy. The Judeo-Christian ethic says very clearly in the Bible that if a person commits a crime, they should be punished. God Almighty never intended his creations to be walked over, brutalized, tortured, and shot to death like these men were. God happens to be on our side.
The Reverend had suggested at some point maybe we'd all say a prayer. I would say that we say it in our hearts, not that this man be allowed out, not that he be transformed from whatever he is, and he's a pig, all right? but that he be given the inner strength to live the rest of his miserable life in some slovenly jail cell. Yes, sir.
Mort, I just want to say that I think it's kind of ironic that a man that does such a heinous crime has the option to have parole, or any option, any whatsoever. The man was convicted. He deserves what he gets. That's it. He don't deserve to come out back into the general public. How could our political officials on the top, who are taking our tax dollars, say
and to make a fortune, right, and to make a fortune writing a book, having a movie done about him, appearing in People magazine? You, sir.
Mort, 24 years, 5 months, and 1 day ago, I became a police officer in Lodi, along with Gary and a few other people. 24 months, 24 years, 5 months, and a day. I'm looking forward to my retirement. Gary isn't. But Tommy Trantino's looking to retire. I had a million things to say, but you know what? In 24 years, this is the first time that we, the Chief Delaney, and my people have had a chance to get to the public and explain and tell our story. We have never told our story. The chief is interviewed. The whole half hour is on TV for 1, 2, 3, 4 seconds. This happens time and time again. This is the first time we have had to get to the people. And I tell you, I'm partly involved in this. I have in my office tens and thousands of letters. How could those people be wrong and 2 people be right and say he can be paroled?
You know what's happening, America? Rise up and get with it. We'll be right back. I want to really conclude this by going to the 2 chiefs and see if they can summarize, or if you have anything to say in about a minute, Chief.
We are here tonight, as we've been many nights, fighting our battle, but most of all, we're fighting your battle. America must stand strong in the eyes of the rest of the world. We're engaged now in fighting terrorism overseas. We're asking them to bring the prisoners here. We want our hands on them. We cannot do anything unless we set the example here, that we're able to take care of the terrorists here, the ones that terrorize your children, the ones that abuse your children. We cannot stand for business as usual. We're here to help you. Nobody knows what we went through. It's ugly. I could give you stories about my father receiving a stroke the same night, about my sister-in-law being diagnosed as having a gallbladder, and later on to find out it was her heart. That isn't going to only do it. We need you. You need us. We are going to be the catalyst to see that justice is done, period.
You know, Mort, if I could, I would love to have the viewing audience be able to feel what I feel based on that night.
Can you still smell the death?
Oh, I choke on it. It was the most macabre scene I have ever seen in my life. But the worst thing is to think that we have come this far and this guy may walk. You know, we can't bring back Gary. We can't bring back Peter. We sure in hell should not bring back Trantino.
Tonight, my friends, you've heard a horrible story. A murder and complete injustice. Of course, we all know there can never be a happy ending for the families of Peter Voto and Gary Tedesco. As sure as hell shouldn't be a happy ending for Thomas Trantino. Let that parole board know how you feel. Keep the beast in his own belly. What do we do to him? Good night, everybody. Thank you.